Hey, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. I love Superman. Ever since I was a young lad and now as a young man, I've loved the superheroes that inspired hope. Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman, and Superman. So, why do I love Superman so much? I don't know, man. I just do. It's hard to put into words why the big red S speaks to me. It's hard to put into words why a man flying high above the city's tallest skyscrapers would fill me with joy. It's hard to put into words why I love Superman. But I'm gonna try. 2025. When Superman Legacy releases, it will have been 12 years since the Big Blue Boy Scout has gotten his own feature film. In those 12 years, I will have gone from my second year of elementary school to my second year of college. I've gone through hardships, heartbreak, friends coming and going, crippling social anxiety, found who I really am, discovered my passion for filmmaking, all in those 12 years, in between two Superman movies. The world doesn't just want another Superman movie. Hell, it may not even want one, but it needs a new Superman movie. Someone to remind us that it's okay to be kind. Someone to remind us that it's okay to help a stranger. Someone to remind us that everything is going to be okay if we just love one another. The movie opens with a news broadcast. The broadcast is a montage of people being interviewed by reporters on what their thoughts on the new hero of Metropolis is. The results are overwhelmingly positive. It's through these interviews that we learn about the people's relationship with Superman. They feel safer. Parents are comfortable letting their kids go to school on a bike, and shop owners are okay with being open late after dark. Superman has brought nothing but good to the city. Superman has been saving people around Metropolis for 2 years, and the montage ends with one person saying, "I trust Superman." We fade to black and the title creeps in, Superman Legacy. We then cut to a montage set to some upbeat music. We see Superman helping the citizens of Metropolis. We see him help a woman save her cat from a tree. We see him buy a little boy a new ice cream cone after his other one fell onto the ground. We see him sit with an elderly woman on the park bench and just talk to her about her day. We see him flying above gridlock traffic when he hears a woman in labor and her husband trying to keep her calm. Superman flies down to pick up the car and brings them to the hospital as quickly as possible. We then see him fly down next to a young boy who's just fallen off his skateboard. Superman comforts him as he skinned his knee pretty badly and broke his board in half. Superman takes the boy for a fly around the city before dropping him off at home. The boy's mother even offers him a homemade brownie on his way out. And then he wakes up, 2 years later. Clark looks around his room and he turns on the light. He stands up and looks at his alarm clock. It's 8 a.m. We see Clark go through his normal morning routine like a normal guy eating a normal breakfast and leaving to arrive at his normal job. Clark arrives at the Daily Planet. Here, we meet our supporting characters. We meet Perry White, the boss with a hard exterior but a soft, compassionate man on the inside. We meet Jimmy Olsen, the buddy intern who's just happy to be there. Clark sees himself in Jimmy. Clark was an intern not too long ago, and he's worked his way up from there to become an actual reporter. We meet Lois Lane, the pinnacle of perseverance and willpower, the woman who will always make the hard choice to make the right choice. Clark sits at his desk, where Perry approaches him. He slams a newspaper down under Clark's desk. "What is this, Kent?" Clark looks at the newspaper. He sees an article he wrote titled, "The Woman of 100 Hearts." "That's my article." Perry's displeased. "Nobody wants to know about the old lady who took in 100 stray cats. They want to know about which convenience store was robbed last night." Throughout this movie, we need to highlight how Clark's beliefs on seeing the good in humanity is timeless. We need to see the truth, the justice, and the American way. But what does that American way even mean anymore? In a world where there's so much hate, so much darkness, what does that phrase really mean? Truth, justice, and the American way. Clark writes about the things that can inspire hope and give people joy, while his boss wants him to write about things that do the opposite. Fearmonger, make the people of Metropolis question their safety. It's all anybody cares about anymore. How does this affect me? They don't help their neighbors anymore. They look out for themselves because they fear what will happen if they don't. Superman is a timeless character. He doesn't need to be modernized because he's always been modernized. Superman flies high above the clouds like every child wishes they could. He helps everybody and doesn't discriminate. He's the kindest person on the planet because he was raised by the kindest people on the planet. All he does is love. He loves humanity. If he didn't choose love, if he didn't choose to see the good in all of us, he would have been like General Zod. He would have been like every other villain because he would only see what we do wrong. He'd only see hate. This movie shouldn't be about Clark learning to love. It should be about Clark teaching a world that gets more sour by the day to love. For the villain of this movie, I want Parasite to be the main threat at first, a foe that can drain the life force out of anybody he touches. Parasite would be an interesting villain for this movie because while Superman instills hope, Parasite drains it. He kills people to survive. He's greedy out of necessity because he's also a victim. Someone who was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone who needs Superman. Parasite would be created when a janitor at a research facility in Metropolis comes into contact with a strange alien substance. This would turn the innocent Rudolph Jones into the parasite. He would have the constant need to feed on the people of Metropolis. Rudolph wouldn't be wanting to do this, but he would need to. Without constantly gaining energy from his victims, he'd die. Superman eventually realizes this, and he tries to help Parasite rather than harm him. Superman's first initial instinct was to help civilians, but once he found out that Parasite was just as much a victim as the civilians, he focused on healing Parasite. This version of Superman is younger. He's in his 20s and he's fairly inexperienced. He's never faced a supervillain before, so he doesn't entirely know how to handle this situation. He wants to help Parasite, but he can't touch him without Parasite accidentally killing him. I also want Lex Luthor to be in this movie, but not as a main threat. After witnessing the things that Parasite is doing to the civilians of Metropolis, he would create a machine called Metallo in order to kill Parasite, a robot as large as a building. At this point, Superman is trying to help Parasite. Metallo attacks Parasite and Superman tries to intervene, but this is where we get our first introduction to the DCU's kryptonite. Superman's unaware that Lex Luthor created the Metallo machine, but we, the audience, do. This sets up Lex as a threat to keep an eye on in future movies. Metallo manages to kill Parasite. Superman is broken. Before Parasite died, he cried out to Superman, "Help me, Superman. Help me, please." The following fight is a one-on-one between Superman and Metallo. Superman struggles to fight Metallo since he's severely weakened by this new object, kryptonite. This is where our superhero hits his low point. Metropolis has been hurt by Parasite. Metallo found a weakness in Superman. Parasite was killed while begging for his life, and Superman isn't able to defeat Metallo. So, the young Superman almost gives up. He takes a hit and is thrown blocks away as he crashes onto the street. Superman struggles to get back up, but he can't. He's too weak. He lies there looking around at the destruction that he's failing to prevent. People are getting hurt. People he can't help. People he loves. Superman is ready to give in. He looks up to the sky and he sees gray clouds shield the sun. Superman closes his eyes. All hope is lost. Then he feels a hand on his shoulder. Superman opens his eyes as he looks into the face of that boy he helped a couple of years ago. The boy with the broken skateboard. He's hurt. Blood drips from his forehead. The boy looks at Superman with hope in his eyes. He turns to Metallo, who's now running towards them. The boy takes his own blood from his forehead and draws the S on his blue shirt. Then, Superman feels more hands on him. He looks behind him and sees the people of Metropolis helping him to his feet. Superman stands up, literally being lifted by the people he's been fighting for. Metallo arrives and slams his fist down onto the boy. The young kid raises his hand to stop the massive metal hand. Then, the hand stops. It looks like the boy is holding the hand up. The boy looks next to him where he sees Superman trying his best to hold the fist from crushing them all. But he's weak. He can't hold it. Just then, the rest of the people rush underneath the fist to help Superman hold it up. Superman looks at them and they all have the S written on their shirts. Superman uses this encouragement to push through his pain, to push himself further. He begins to float above the ground, lifting the fist. Then, Superman throws Metallo down the street. The people of Metropolis cheer for their Superman. Not just their protector, but their neighbor, their friend. Superman thanks all of them, then speeds down to the street towards Metallo. The final battle ensues as Superman pushes himself as far as possible while being weakened by Metallo. Superman does his best to minimize all collateral damage in fear of the civilians' lives. As the fight continues, Superman realizes that no matter how hard he tries to minimize it, the collateral damages will be too great. So, Superman does the only thing he can do. He grabs Metallo and flies him into space. As he flies the robot higher and higher into the sky, he struggles to breathe due to the kryptonite nullifying his abilities. Superman eventually leaves the atmosphere and begins to feel lightheaded. With the last of his remaining strength, he grabs the kryptonite and rips it from Metallo's chest before throwing it into deep space. He then grabs the robot and breaks it in half, ending the fight. Superman falls unconscious as he floats above Earth. The music dies down for a moment as we see Superman float above the planet he calls home. Then, his eyes shoot open. He gasps for a breath and he looks straight ahead as he sees the sun. He flies towards the sun and absorbs all the energy he needs to heal from the fight with Metallo. Superman flies back down to Metropolis and he's cheered on by the people of the city of tomorrow. They all cheer for Superman, but also themselves. They hug one another and there's a real sense of connectivity in the community. The movie ends with Clark visiting the grave of Rudolph Jones, the man who became the parasite. Clark stands over the grave in the rain as he leaves flowers for Rudolph. The final shot of the movie is a classic. Superman floats above Earth, admiring its true beauty. As he flies overhead, he smiles down on the planet, love in his heart. And that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I know it isn't nearly as detailed as some of my other pitch videos, but I wanted to cover more of the feeling that this movie gives rather than a specific plot. Tone is incredibly important when it comes to Superman, and this movie absolutely needs to nail this hopeful tone of the young Superman. Make sure you subscribe and like the video, it really helps out. Take it easy.